Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. Tonight's guest is Mark Henley out of New Jersey. Mark, come on in.
Hey,
Happy
how
to
you
have you
doing?
here. Doing
Oh,
well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Just another day.
I love it. I am so glad that we connected on Instagram. You have a story to tell, and your story is very interesting. It starts with you turn 18, voting age, and your father says, let me quote your father here. You gave me a quote. Blacks have to vote Democrat. And you were told that when you became eligible to vote. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was crazy. My dad was in the military, and he had a lot of hardships back in the '80s. And when I was eligible to vote, it was George Bush's second term, and I remember being kind of beside myself. So I didn't know what to do because I didn't like how Bush handled 9/11. But also I didn't know much about John Kerry. So I asked my father, I said, well, I didn't like, what Bush did. A lot of people died, but John Kerry kind of came out of nowhere. And he goes, well, you got to vote for John Kerry. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, he's a Democrat. And I'm like, well, what difference does that make? And then that's when he said it. Well, you're black, you got to vote Democrat. And then my eyes were just open after that.
Wow. Wow. That's really interesting. I like that you caught on early that there wasn't an explanation. It was just, well, that's just what you do, right? And that didn't sit
Yeah,
right with you. How
no,
about the
no.
rest of your family?
They're all hardcore Democrat blind people, and they rely on the government, and they think that that's the only way they can survive. It just
Hmm.
I don't get them. They're just lost. Yep, all the way
Have your
down.
have your views, because they are differing from the rest of your family, have they caused a lot of contention to where maybe you're not invited to some family gatherings?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, my older sister, like I haven't seen her in probably like 10, 15 years, so I
Wow.
don't go to family events, any of that stuff. It's really sad. But I just I know what the right thing to do is, because it's bigger than blood. Like this is a country that God put together, so that's what I'm focused on.
That is big. That is incredibly sad. We've seen in the last 3 years a lot of families be torn apart with differing views, but you're going back 15 years
Yeah.
of this where your family, really, in a sense, is this correct to say they've disowned you in a sense?
Yeah, no, that flattens it out like pretty simple. They basically did. It's just like, Mark's crazy, he's following those white people, so
Mm.
whatever that means is crazy.
It's interesting because I go back to, we think about present day. And with
Hmm.
everything happening, and even let's even talk about the BLM movement that we saw. And now it's very obvious that the money did not go into the Black community as promised,
Yeah.
as advertised. Instead, the folks that were running it at the top are purchasing multiple homes, and we're talking mansions for themselves.
Yeah.
Even with that evidence, your family, it sounds like they are still in the belief that Democrats are actually looking out for their best interest as a community?
Yeah, like they will flat out come out their mouths that, oh, Joe Biden's doing a fantastic job, and I'm just like, what? Like, you see what's
Wow.
going on right now? Like, we're literally on the brink of going bankrupt, like as a nation, which is crazy, and
Right.
they're that blind and oblivious to the truth, and it's really sad. I don't get it.
It really is. So I wanted to bring up something, and this is sensitive, but I think it's important. This is historical, and I'm sure you're familiar with these disgusting quotes out of the mouth of Lyndon B. Johnson, but specifically during the civil rights movement, right around the act of, in 1964. He said, and I have this quoted, I will have them ends voting Democratic for the next 200 years. And he said this to two governors. And it's
Mhm.
documented. People like to say that it's not true, but it's documented. And it sounds like, unfortunately, that this piece of trash, Lyndon B. Johnson, that he was right. I mean, we're not 200 years into the future, but so far he seems to be
He nailed
correct.
it. He nailed it. I mean, and the crazy part about it is, like, you think about Lyndon B. Johnson and even like the dictators of like World War II that like slaughtered a racial demographic, the Jews, blacks, gypsies, whatever it was. Like back then, like they actually like got a gun. Like today, they're literally not even flicking a finger and telling these people what to do, and they're doing it with no problem. I don't understand how people are this weak minded where they could just be easily, lured with a carrot to just jump. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I believe that right now we are in a battle of good and evil. And unfortunately, I'm not saying people that vote Democratic are evil. I'm just saying that they are being misled by evil
Yeah,
to think that they are doing the right thing. So going back to when you turn 18, you're ready to vote. Your dad basically says, "You're black, you have one option, and that's to vote Democratic." At that point in time, did you end up voting for Bush or did you end up going for John Kerry?
I actually voted for Bush just because of that, and I've never been a
Wow.
registered Democrat since. Yeah, yeah, that literally opened my eyes. Like I started to dissect the Civil War more, all those things that my dad said. Oh, well, this is racist. Like you go down south, they're going to hang you. I mean, I've been
Mhm.
down a ton of states below Maryland, and I've never. No one's tried to hang me. I'm okay.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, talk to us about I wish I would have given our producer Juan the picture of your car, but talk to us about your car. You call it the General, right?
Yeah, the
I'm
general
sure
is
you
so much.
I'm sure you've
Well,
gotten some flack for that in New Jersey.
a lot of slack. So my car is literally designed like the Dukes of Hazzard car, which is the General Lee. It has the Confederate flag on it. It has President Trump all over it. All my patriotic views are all plastered on the car, and I'm in a very, very liberal Democratic state where they can't stand it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Especially because you don't fit the mold, especially what's being painted on CNN, right? The white supremacist, and so
Yeah,
it's not only are you confusing the hell out of them, they just don't like your views.
yeah.
What inspired you or pushed you in the direction of being as bold as having a car decorate I say it like it's a shirt or something, but, the way you have it with all of your views just right there, what led you to that?
So, I was doing a lot of acting, believe it or not, a few years ago. Like, I was like a career that I was following and pursuing, and I had this commercial set up for Adidas. This is when I was running marathons, and we shot the commercial. It was the week that George Floyd died. Shot the commercial. It was great, and then they came back and they were saying, "Oh, we want to reshoot it," and I was like, "Why?" And they said, "Oh, we want to do it with BLM gear on," and I was like, "Why?"
Ooh.
Oh, well, one of your brothers died. And I was like, what brothers? I have two sisters. I don't have any brothers. So they basically told me, like, if I don't, put this on and reshoot the commercial, then I'm done. And when that happened, it just triggered something inside of me where I said, you know what, I'm going to show people that we can vocalize however we want as long as we're not hurting anybody, and life goes on. And that's when I just said I'm gonna get me a General Lee, and that's the rest was history.
Sure, if you saw Juan had just popped it up on the screen. He was able to go find it, so that's awesome. Nice work, Juan, on the fly. What a beautiful car. I think that's
Thank you.
fantastic that you did that and that you stood your ground. And wow, it's so wild. The Go Woke, Go Broke movement here, it's insane. And I know for a lot of people in my base, including yourself, are pretty strong and don't shop at Target, don't wear Nike, don't go to Disneyland, right? Like we actually put our money where our mouth is. And I really like to hear that from you as well. I still have so many people. I saw somebody recently who kind of does what I do. They speak out and they're in the Northwest as well. And they just were at Disneyland posting a bunch of pictures. And I unfollowed them so quickly. And I said, you know what? You're a grifter. You are a grifter. And so it's wild to have people say A and they're doing B. So we can't do any of that. Clearly, you
No.
are on the right side of history here. So amazing. So all right, so you wow, really bold. And so how have you bridged the gap? You don't because you don't have the your family, you're not able to go to family events and that's like a piece of your heart missing, right? So how do you bridge that gap and find a community that is like-minded or at least accepting of your views? And then what does that look like today for you and are you at peace?
Well, believe it or not, the biggest way to fill that void has been attending President Trump's rallies. I
Mm.
will go anywhere within 9 hours, 10 hours if he's doing an event. And that's where I connect with so many people. I mean, thousands of people all over the country. There's people from Alaska to even Portland that I've connected with on several occasions. So that has been a big piece of filling my heart up for sure. Going to those events.
I love to hear that. That's incredible. So do you have you found a community in New Jersey, in at least somewhat close to your hometown, where you can connect and actually
Um,
be accepted?
Yeah, there's a few little groups, but the problem is I'm in South New Jersey, so it's like
Mm,
hardcore liberal. Like the real Republicans and conservatives, they're like at the bottom of the state, which is like, an hour and a half. So they're kind of out of reach at times, but I'm like in the middle of the mess. So I
right,
see
right.
them when I can, but overall, I'll either link up with them when they have little events, or like for instance, next week President Trump's gonna be in New Hampshire, 6 hour drive. I'm going. That's
Oh,
it.
that is so cool. That is so cool. I wish he'd come to my neck of the woods. I don't think, but he doesn't have any. Washington, Oregon,
No,
doesn't make sense.
no way.
Not a good
He really
business
doesn't have enough
decision.
Secret Service for that trip.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Did you
It
nail it?
seems.
Seriously. All right. All right, folks. We're going to go to commercial real quick. We'll be right back and we will be diving into some very explosive stuff, literally.
I was asking God through prayer, seeking a good news source. I believe He showed me the Epic Times. I deliver the mail and came across an issue. The front page intrigued me and I subscribed. Now I cut out articles and give them to friends and family. I leave old issues at the library and around my community. We read it to our kids and love the positive messages in each article. So why do I think everyone should read the Epic Times? Because they're bringing back traditional values to this great country.
We're back. Okay. I want to touch on your Instagram handle before we get into the explosive aspect of our conversation. S- Uncle Tom Sellout, just for you. I'm sure you guys have seen Juan popped it up on the screen. There are some underscores in there, so you can go follow him. But Mark, what made you decide that handle?
Well, once again, when I was getting blackballed from that whole acting industry and other jobs of opportunities, I just said, look, I'm gonna just be me. And I was called an Uncle Tom because of my political views and my views just on life. And then obviously we know what the book of Uncle Tom really is, but of course these people don't have a clue. So it was just a way of me slapping them in their face with their own stupid insult.
I love that. Sometimes that's the only way to go is you just address it head on, and generally they'll leave you alone because they're really looking for the rise, right? And when you just give it to them front and center, their work is done. They don't even have to do
Back.
anything. The
No.
exciting part for them, you've taken care of. All right. I want to go into the fact that in 2021, you ran for your local Board of Education and you were immediately met with opposition. What did that look and sound like?
Well, it's funny too because you talked about how you had grifters, like people that call themselves Republicans and they're going to Disneyland taking pictures. The same things with the Republican Party in New Jersey. I actually got more, probably equal attention from them when I ran because I couldn't be controlled. And people don't realize Board of Education is the strongest thing that we need to get involved in with politics because it starts with our kids. If we don't handle them first, then it's a mess. So I got opposition from obviously me driving around my car campaigning for Board of Education. It was, they didn't like that. They didn't like me not wearing a mask. I refused to wear a mask at the debates and all that stuff. So yeah, I got a lot of heat for just stepping up and vocalizing.
Wow, I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's really wild. You touched on something that's very important. That is our children. They're our future. As cliche as that sounds, and really, what we see happening is mainly on the left. They're trying to perverse our children, and really, that's one aspect of it. But also just creating foot soldiers that will vote left, do everything that they're told to do and not think for themselves. And so being involved in politics locally and especially with the school board, like you touched on, that is crucial. And I say this almost every week. One's probably like, yep, heard this message, but stop focusing on Washington, D.C., folks. Focus on your local politics and get involved locally because they are putting things through that actually impact you right then there in your own community, your children. And you probably have no idea because you're so focused on, the clown show that we have in Washington, D.C. So, what led you to get involved and run for the Board of Education?
Well, because I didn't want to be one of those guys sitting on the sidelines, like many people we know that talk about change, but they don't want to do anything to do it. So I didn't want to be one of those individuals. I wanted to actually put my boots to the ground and make a difference. And it's funny that you said like people are so focused on getting to Washington and getting to the Capitol, but that's because that's where the paychecks are. But if you want to actually change the future, it starts with local government. It's no question.
Right. And that's both running and voting. And
Hmm.
it's amazing. If anyone ever wants to really get insight into how there's a complete lack of focus at the local level, what they have to do is just go look at the amount of undervotes. I was a campaign manager for the midterms for a Washington senator, and we ended up losing by 1,200 votes. That was brutal. But it was really interesting to see. We had 5,400 undervotes, and it was because it was a position that didn't have an R or a D next to it. And when you see undervotes, that just tells you how uneducated the voters are. They didn't vote one way or another. That means they literally just left it blank. I know I'm just telling the audience, but but yeah, so they just leave it blank and then that screws you, right? And it shows that they just don't even know what's going on at a local level. And that's how
And they
we
don't,
see a lot of crazy things happening. Taxes, I mean just so much.
and then they'll complain about it, but it's like you didn't vote, you didn't show up, so don't talk
Right.
about
Right. Exactly. And I appreciate your call to action in that regard and that you actually stepped up because something I my kids are homeschooled and recently they needed somebody to it's like a homeschool community. They needed somebody to
it.
teach 7th grade and I was like, "No, I'm not I'm not up for this." But no one else was volunteering and I had to play this in my mind. I was like, "If not you, then who?" Right? And
Yeah.
so I will be teaching 7th grade next year. It's only 1 day a week, so it's
Mhm.
not too bad, but it's like one of those things that like if like you stepped up and it's a commitment, you're putting yourself out there, but we have to do this if we want change. And
Yeah.
it's really difficult to see, especially these leftist cities that we live in. You and I both live in one, and it's really frustrating to see all these people complain about it, especially people that are voting for these liberal politicians who don't believe in
Yep.
law and order, and
Yeah.
they complain. And I am very vocal now. If someone presents it, I'll say, "You need to vote differently. Stop! I don't even want
Yeah.
to hear it until you change the way you're voting." And
Yeah.
so, thank you for your action that you've shown in your local community.
I appreciate everything you're doing.
Oh, you as well. All right. I want to touch on everyone's like, what explosive part are they even talking about? Okay. So in September of 2021, you're eating at
Mhm.
your favorite local diner. And for those people that don't live on the East Coast, because I lived in New York City for a year, I married a New Yorker. A good diner, I mean, that's exciting. When you have a good diner, that's important to most East Coast folks. So he's at his favorite
Jersey's
diner,
full of
right, Mark? You're like, "This is my
yes.
favorite place. I'm just eating this comfort food, whatever," and the waitress tells you your car's on fire.
Oh
Talk to
my
us
God.
about what happened.
And so it's so funny. So fun fact too about Jersey, we had the longest running rodeo in the country. And I was on my way to watch this rodeo. So I stopped at my favorite diner, Ponzio's, and I'm eating, and the waitress literally was like, excuse me, your car's on fire. And I'm like, oh, whatever. And then next thing you know, there's like, it's like helter skelter. Like people are running around, grabbing buckets of water. And then I'm like, oh, I must be getting punked. Like Ashton Kutcher must be outside. And then I go outside, and there's like a 10-foot flame out my hood. And thank God the fire department is close. They got there and extinguished it, but it caused a lot of damage. And I was just like, wait, what? Like, am I on like Goodfellas or something? Like, what is
Oh
happening?
my gosh. And this is
Yeah,
before the election, right? So this is September. The
yeah,
elections were in
yeah.
November. So clearly, do you feel that someone was merely trying to send you a message? Or do you feel like their intention was to potentially blow up your vehicle while you're inside?
I mean, I think it was a combination of both. And it's so funny because the fire marshal tried to be all nonchalant about it. He's like, oh, yeah, it's just a window motor. I'm like, sir, I work for a auto mechanic shop. There's nothing in that window reservoir that can ignite. And then when they pulled the window cowl off, it's called, that's the plastic cover under your windshield wipers, they found a Zippo lighter. So these people
Mm.
put like some fluid, and then they drop the Zippo lighter. I don't know if you know what a Zippo lighter is. That's the ones
Oh,
that just
yeah.
go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah."
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I had a wild past.
Oh my.
Everyone
Well,
had a
yeah.
Zippo.
So yep. So you light that thing and walk away. That's what happened. It was crazy. And I mean,
Wow.
would it have been worth it if like Ponjo's is a very busy, popular diner in South Jersey. So there's families there walking to their cars. And what if like it would have blew and killed someone? Would it have been worth it?
Yeah,
Like,
seriously.
yeah,
Wow.
that was
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Well,
Yeah,
it's hard not to go in the Goodfellas direction, especially when you're right there in Jersey, right?
yeah,
So, you're like, "What's
yeah.
happening here?" But are you pretty convinced that it had to do with your running for local office?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a message. I mean, and I was really it really put a fire under me. That's when I realized like
No pun
this is a
intended.
battle. Yeah, this is a battle that we got to keep going up. Yep, exactly. It was a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know what that's like. Yeah, it's like the more someone tells you you can't do something, you're like, "I'm gonna prove them wrong." So
Yep.
in a sense, I
I'm a,
like your positive spin on that. Okay, so I want to also touch on, you had shared with me a document where someone references you as a black white supremacist What was going on there? I know it has to do with your job or like either
Yeah.
previous job, current job, but what is the
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, so I run a transmission shop, and this gentleman, he was typical, customer, wasn't pleased, didn't want to pay a certain price. Yada, yada. So, long story short, his wife spotted me getting in my car after work, and apparently she blew a gasket. So, I guess they went on Better Business Bureau and ranted about, the poor service here. And if you read the letter, it's not really focused on the service I gave them. It was just focused on my political views. And he called me a
Right.
black white supremacist, in quotations, a white man, by the way. So,
Oh my gosh. People are crazy. I know. I was reading the letter and I was trying to make heads or tails of what is your objective here outside of getting your money back? What is your
yeah,
objective? And
like,
so
why
you
was
can
I
tell.
even mentioned? Why was I
Right,
even
yeah,
mentioned?
it didn't make sense. I actually had to read it twice to even make sense of it, like a little bit of sense of it. I was like, what is this man trying to accomplish?" So, yeah,
Yeah,
that was odd. So that's the kind of nonsense you deal with regularly, and
yeah.
it just really shows how misled people are. So we have 2
Mhm.
minutes left. I really wanna dive into Mark, you're a force and you have a lot to offer. What are your plans for the future?
My plans basically are to keep getting involved, keep vocalizing. Definitely want to take another stab at local government, and I'm not going to give up on this country because our forefathers fought for it, and we are beyond blessed to be here, and it's worth fighting for, and we got to hold the line.
That's incredible. I wanna ask you, I haven't asked you this yet. Are you religious?
Yeah, I'm a Christian, absolutely.
I thought so. I could you can tell sometimes when someone's speaking that that's where their heart is, and we
Yeah.
hadn't talked about that before. So, I do feel that, and I'm curious again, I'm down to a minute here, but has that played a role in peace of mind, despite the fact that you don't have your family right there, because of your opposing views? Has having God in your heart helped?
Oh, absolutely. Because without him, I wouldn't be here. So I keep my faith and I believe. I know that the sun's gonna shine again. So that's what I bank on, and that's what gets me up in the morning, gets me motivated, and gets me smiling. So
Well,
even though
you're
they're not,
incredible.
yeah. Thank you. I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate you and everything you do. You're inspiring. Where can people follow you?
Uncle underscore Tom underscore cell underscore out.
All right. And that's Instagram. And now you mentioned you're in the process of building a website or at least getting something put together, right?
Eventually, yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. Well, I'm sure you'll share that on Instagram. So, folks, go follow
Yes,
Mark on Instagram. I'm Instagram friends with him, and it is mutually beneficial. Really enjoy what he has to say. I'm really appreciative that you took the time to come on this evening.
back at you. I appreciate you.
Oh, anytime. All right. Well, we'll be in touch. And thank you for coming on KSOK Uncensored. And for everyone else, we will see you next Thursday.